Good day, gentlemen. DIRK here with the MGTOW solution. This video is about love, marriage, and children, things many of us consider part of a bygone era. But these are the very things that people point to when criticizing MGTOW. After all, human beings have a strong instinct to pair bond and procreate, so shouldn't we at least give it a shot? Unfortunately, in this day and age, the answer is probably no, and I'm going to explain why. A lot of us tried the whole love and marriage thing because we weren't aware of the potential consequences. If I had known then what I know now. Anyway, I'm going to tell you what I know now, so here it is. Chapter 5: Love, Marriage, and Children. From early childhood, we were all taught that the key to happiness is finding your true love and starting a family. This ideal actually still works out in some cases, though rarely. It's only natural for both men and women to want this. Having a happy, healthy family is a big part of life for many people. Hats off to all the happily married couples out there, and their children. I know one couple that first met when they were 6 years old and have been married now for over 25 years. They're a wonderful couple, and they both seem sincerely happy. Their kids are grown up, and the two of them are constantly exploring new places and doing fun things together. Just a glance at them and you can see that they're still crazy about each other. The man in this case found his unicorn. Children, too, bring a lot of joy into the world, and fatherhood can be one of the most rewarding experiences that a man ever has. Of course, it's the same for motherhood. This goes back to our basic biological instinct to procreate. The problem, of course, is that very often things don't work out as we would have liked. When that happens, the man involved is at a distinct disadvantage, as we have seen. Does this mean we shouldn't even try? That's an individual decision, and one that shouldn't be taken lightly. There are few life events that match marriage and parenthood in the scope of their commitments. Some men view the risks as far too great and opt to go their own way at a young age, which of course is fine, probably a good move. Others make, hopefully, an informed decision and take a shot at the whole happy family thing. If you think about it, MGTOW is probably your best resource for making an informed decision. If you only listen to women, pop culture, and government sources, you'll only get half of the information. The rose-colored glass is half. You'll be assured that having a wife offers countless advantages, including the ability to have children. MGTOW, by contrast, will also provide a glimpse of the darker side. You already know that most marriages don't end well, and it's not a good idea to gloss over that fact and simply hope you'll be the exception to the rule. When there are children involved, the stakes are even higher. Many opponents to MGTOW paint us all as diametrically opposed to families, but I don't think this is the case. Personally, I have no issue whatsoever with a man getting married and starting a family if that's what he wants out of life. I wish such men well. But I also recognize that he's taking a calculated risk, whether he acknowledges this or not. The question of families and children is something that every man is going to have to work out for himself, and a lot will depend on where he's at in life. A 40-year-old guy coming out of a bad 15-year marriage with children is in a far different situation than a 20-year-old single guy who just discovered MGTOW. The fact is that currently, if a man wants children, then he needs a woman. There's no way around it, yet. If you're not willing to take the marriage plunge, then you really only have a couple of options. You can either accept not becoming a father, or become a single parent through surrogacy or adoption. I don't have any direct experience with either of those, but I do know that some men are exercising those options. In the future, we may see the emergence of artificial wombs, unless, of course, the government deems such scientific advances somehow immoral. Predictably, there are already women opposing such ideas, because it would render their primary function of childbearing irrelevant. What it would really do is render women irrelevant, unless you count vaginas being used for pleasure. This is making them nervous, understandably. And what about the argument that a child needs their mother? I would counter that they also need their fathers, but that women in the courts appear to believe this is not the case. Remember, 81.6% of custody battles end with the children living with the mother. The father's access to his own children is in all of those cases limited, and in many cases eliminated entirely, even if he's paying child support. It's very common for women to use children as weapons in divorce proceedings, either by attempting to turn them against their own father or by denying him access. In her mind, they are her kids far more than his, because she carried them for 9 months. Unfortunately, courts usually concur with this assessment. I suspect that many women would deny their father's right to see his own children entirely if it weren't a condition for receiving child support. The only way the kids need their mom argument holds up is if you believe that moms are more important than dads. And that's exactly the situation we're in at this time, as reflected in the custody statistics. Given this fact, it would probably make more sense to hire a surrogate, because that's a case where you'll get full custody right from the start. Of course, being a single parent is no small undertaking, especially when you're not receiving financial support from other people or the state. You would obviously want to do a lot of research on the topic before making such a decision. Most single parents are either divorced or they are women who got pregnant while single, which begs the question, how does living in a single-parent household affect kids? Divorce is a difficult thing for children at any age, but I think the answer to the question is, it depends. If an abusive, alcoholic father loses his kids, they're probably better off. If the mother is a pillhead psycho, they'd probably be better off with the dad. However, if dad has his act together but mom doesn't, and they are awarded to her anyway, then those children suffer needlessly. Unfortunately, this exact scenario plays out every day. To ensure this outcome, scores of women have gone to great lengths, lying to judges and manipulating the children in the hope that they'll choose her side. They completely ignore the welfare of the kids, most of whom love their fathers. The children are told what a bastard their dad is, and are subjected to constant complaining. This is not in the child's best interest. To be fed lies, to be manipulated, to be forced to choose between two parents, both of whom they usually love. It's emotional abuse of children, plain and simple, but women can't see it, in part because they're trying to convince themselves, as well as the kids, that they're doing the right thing. It's another example of logic and reality being thrown out the window in favor of irrational, emotional decision-making. The women who do this are amongst the most vile of human beings. Single moms are everywhere today, while single dads are outliers, the proverbial exception to the rule. I've known a few single fathers over the years, as well as a lot of single moms. In my experience, how well the children do is more a function of what kind of people the parents in question are, rather than gender. After all, some men are assholes. But it's gender, not character, that determines the outcome in custody disputes, with only rare exceptions. Women have to screw up royally to lose custody, whereas men just need to be men. The single man desiring to be a parent will have a lot of hurdles to clear. I would expect that if a man goes through the process of hiring a surrogate mother to have a child, then he's probably pretty serious about wanting to be a parent, and is therefore likely to do a good job of it. He's also likely to be financially able to do so, given that surrogacy isn't cheap. All a woman has to do to get a child is let a guy fuck her. The difference is that the woman will concurrently seek resources from others, whereas the man will seek to provide resources. She'll get knocked up without even having a real plan because she knows she has a big safety net. Even if she doesn't win child support from the poor schmuck who crossed her path, she'll still get financial and other support from the state. If a man decides to solo parent, it'll probably be after careful consideration and planning. You're not likely to see a guy pursuing this path while he's unemployed or in a low-paying job. He knows that he'd better think it through and be completely prepared. Not so with many women. The baby rabies that so commonly afflicts women makes them even more irrational than they were in the first place. And it gets worse as their biological clocks continue ticking away, getting louder and louder with each passing year. They become completely obsessed. We're currently seeing something of an epidemic of this phenomenon because women have insisted on spending their 20s focused on their careers and having fun sexually. You know, doing feminist stuff. Then, in their 30s, they wonder why nobody will marry them and have kids. It's because you're hitting the wall. You're not as valuable as perhaps you once were. It's no different than some overweight sedentary guy suddenly deciding at age 40 that he's going to win the Mr. Olympia. Sorry, but you kind of missed your window of opportunity. So these women start to panic, and the baby rabies can lead to sperm jacking. Either the woman will lie about birth control or stoop so low as to dig a used condom out of the trash to impregnate herself. Always flush the condom. There are even cases where women perform oral sex, then spit everything into a cup for later transfer to her vagina. The used condom trick has happened enough that some clever MGTOW have devised a good defense. Flush the condom, but then open another one and unroll it. Insert some horseradish and throw it in the wastebasket. If she pulls this stunt, she'll be in for a rude awakening. From what I hear, horseradish in a vagina is not pleasant. But what's she gonna do? Call you out for it? If she does, she's admitted to being a sperm jacker. Just a thought. As far as kids and families go, most MGTOW with children probably had them in their blue pill days. If that's the case, then all you can do is make the best of whatever situation you find yourself in. For the younger guys who want kids, you'll have a lot to consider. This is somewhat uncharted territory at this point, but there are options for parenthood that don't require subjecting yourself to all the difficulties of marriage. Life is rarely perfect for any of us, and sadly, the dream of a happy family is largely a thing of the past, thanks to feminism and the gynocentric society that supports it. The chances are good that most men will take a shot at it anyway, hopefully with a good appreciation for what's at stake. It's a gamble, and the odds are ever in her favor. If you get lucky and it works out, great. I wish this were a more common outcome. But of course, the safest option is to not get married in the first place. There are some downsides to this, but not many when you look at the big picture. Loneliness is the most common thing cited, but there are a lot of lonely married guys out there, and they're trapped. Besides, you'll have a lot more friendships without someone monopolizing your time and controlling your social life. Being single does not equal being lonely. The tired old, "you'll die alone" argument doesn't carry the weight that it used to. Men have come to realize that they'd much rather die alone and free than shackled and enslaved. The fantasy of having a loving, supportive wife at home is exactly that, a fantasy. It may start out great, but it's a rare woman who doesn't evolve into something completely different from the one you met. I realize this sounds pessimistic, but I've seen little cause for optimism, and things appear to be getting worse for men. With about 3 out of 4 marriages ending in divorce, and with men getting a raw deal in most of those cases, it's a good idea to consider alternatives. There's a reason that the majority of divorces are initiated by women. They have less to lose and much more to gain. Of course, you could live with a woman and not get married, but you'd better know the common law statutes in your state. If you stay with her long enough, you could end up facing the same penalties as if you were married. These laws are expanding as the marriage rate declines. It appears that women simply must be provided with a golden parachute if they spend any length of time with a man. It's wrong, but it's reality. Protect yourself. Here's something else to consider. There have always been men who opted to live as bachelors for their entire lives. This used to be rare, but it's becoming much more common today. I'll bet when those guys hit 40, they are much better off than guys like me who took the marriage route. The good news is that you're now aware of your options, and so can make better decisions at a younger age than many of us. But don't be surprised if even your own mother disapproves of your decision to remain single. When are you going to get married and give me grandchildren? I hate to break it to you, but this is just another example of women looking at men as utilities to provide them with what they want. Never mind how your life will be affected. Damn it, she wants babies to play with. If she's used to getting what she wants from a man, she'll apply the same thinking to you, unfortunately. You may be her son, but you're a man, so expect to be treated like one. That is to say, as someone who provides things for women. And she may go so far as to use shaming tactics, implying that you're immature, refusing to grow up, or maybe even not a real man. Sad but true, mothers are women, and they think like women. Historically, men haven't spent much time talking about relationships. However, women have, at length, and this has given them a distinct advantage. They've been sharing information on how to get what they want from men in relationships for a very long time. Men have mostly shrugged and said, can't live with them, can't live without them, without giving it any more thought. This is changing. We can live without them, and we're discussing these issues largely through the MGTOW community online. Women aren't happy about this, and I've devoted an entire chapter to that fact. I plan to continue spreading the word to any man who will listen, and I hope others who have seen the light will do the same. There's a sense of brotherhood amongst MGTOW because we've suffered through the same trials. When I see guys going through hell in a divorce, I can empathize because I've been through it too. No longer do men have to endure that painful process alone. We've got your back. As the rift between the sexes widens further, it's important to remember that we're not the cause. Men have bent over backwards trying to make their women happy and have made considerable sacrifices. Women have not reciprocated. They've become entitled, arrogant, and ungrateful, not unlike spoiled children. So our collective conscience should be clear as we head out the door. We're just speaking the truth, and if more of us are declining to execute the plans laid out for us by others, then that represents progress. No one has the right to stop us from reclaiming our freedom, and we won't let them. That wraps up Chapter 5. Let me add one final point, and it's about, of all things, making sandwiches. The phrase, "make me a sandwich," is used by many MGTOW, and it gets misinterpreted by our detractors to mean that we just want to boss women around. But they're missing the point. The point is that women have become so unappreciative and entitled that the very idea of making even one tiny gesture of appreciation to their men is unthinkable. We're expected to devote most of our waking hours to work in some form, and so would appreciate a woman taking 3 minutes to do something nice for us. But they won't. There's a very long list of sacrifices that men are expected to make in a marriage, but women refuse to even make a fucking sandwich? Stick with MGTOW, gentlemen. The world has gone truly insane. Thank you once again for listening, and have a great day.